Hello friends, welcome back to EduTap Himachal Pradesh Administrative Services channel. In this session, we are going to continue with the topic that is unemployment. In the last session, we had left it halfway. So now we are going to continue the topic unemployment and deal with it in the part 2. So just to give you a quick glimpse of what we have understood in the past session, first of all, we understood the technical definition of the unemployment and the different types of unemployment and the nature of unemployment that persists or that exists in India. So in this session, we are going to continue with the measurement of unemployment. So the before proceeding ahead, the question that was given as a homework in the last session was that the disguised unemployment means, and the options where marginal productivity of the labor is zero, positive, negative, both the anti. And as you can see, Manisha Verma has answered it correctly. The answer is marginal productivity of labor is zero. So now let's proceed ahead. So in this session, we are going to talk about the measurement of unemployment. First of all, we did understand that unemployment, a silent pandemic that exists in India. So how do we measure unemployment? Because it is a metric that can be measured. So there are different ways of measuring it. The first and the foremost is we have to understand what do we mean by the labor force participation rate. So this is an important indicator for any country that is having its economic functioning. So the major metric for the measurement of unemployment is LFPR, that is labor force participation rate. So let us try to understand the definition of key indicators. The first is LFPR, that is the labor force participation rate. It is defined as, that is, the unemployment rate is expressed in the terms of percentage. So the first way, let us try to understand the labor force participation rate. It measures the number of employed person plus the number of unemployed person by total population. So we have understood in the last session that what do we understand by unemployment. First key criteria is one should be in the working age group population, which is 15 to 59, and apart from that one should be willing to work. That is the second criteria. If even though being a part of the working age group, one is not willing to work, then he will not be considered as unemployed. And apart from that, the third criteria is when the first two criteria are satisfied, that is working age population, willing to work, then unable to find job, then this is all the three situations which are cumulatively known as unemployed. So if the person is a part of the working age population, that is 15 to 59, and he is willing to work, and at the same time he is unable to find a job for himself, then he is considered as unemployed person. So how do we measure the unemployment rate that exists within the economy? So for that, first of all, the number of employed person, if the person is of working age and he is willing to work, and if he has found the job, then he is an employed. In the same case, if he hasn't found the job, then he is an unemployed person. Then we divide the total population, we get the LFPR, that is labor force participation rate. This is an indicator or a key indicator which will give us an idea that the number of people who really want to go out there and participate in the economic activities. So the LFPR is an important indicator. Now let us come to the unemployment rate. So how do we measure the unemployment rate? Before proceeding with unemployment rate, there is one more indicator which is worker population ratio. So what do we mean by worker population ratio? It is the number of employed person divided by total population. This really doesn't give us any inference. This doesn't give us any inference because it is considering total population, but we do not need the total population. Rather, we should be considering LFPR. So if you look at the unemployment rate, the number of unemployed person divided by the number of employed person plus number of unemployed person, this is going to give us a better measure of the unemployment rate. Because if you look at the total population, then there are people who are not willing to work. So by including them, the metric we are trying to measure, that will be dissolved or diluted. So that is the unemployment rate. And there is one more indicator which is known as proportion unemployed. That is again divided by number of unemployed by total population. So these two indicators are not as important as the LFPR and the unemployment rate. So these are the key indicators one needs to understand before proceeding ahead and measuring the unemployment rate. Now let us look at few of the data that has been published. So this is taken from the Economic Survey of India, that is 2021, which was published in the last Jan. So if you look at the labor force participation rate, it is given as per rural, urban and total, and even male, female. So if you look at the total LFPR, it is 50.97. So what does it signify? It signifies that out of the total population, this much 50.97, that is roughly 51% of the total population is a part of the economic activities. So this is an important indicator. And now if you look at the employment rate, more than employment, we have to focus on unemployment rate. So unemployment rate is 3.83. So out of the 51% of the total population that is willing to work and want to work, and is the people who are unable to find a job are 3.83% of the population. So this is one indicator. And apart from that, the labor force, this is in the year 2017-18. If you look at the recent data, that is 2018 to 19, the LFPR has increased to 51.82 and the unemployment rate has gone down, that is 3.04. These figures are before the pandemic outburst. So it doesn't give us a clear picture, but now with the pandemic onset, the unemployment rates have hit a sky level. So it has touched the unprecedented heights and most of the people have lost their jobs. So this was pre-pandemic time period, that was in 2018 to 19. So now let us look at the different methods. There is, apart from the usual indicators of LFPR and the unemployment rate, the NSSO, that is National Statistics Sample Survey Office, has come up with another criteria, that is based on your activity. It will be measuring whether you are employed or unemployed, and there are different indicators. So first we'll try to understand them. So before going ahead, let us try to understand what actually is activity status. See, activity status of a person is determined on the basis of activities pursued by the person during the specified reference period. So if for example, if you are working for the last 1 year, then the activity that you have been performing is the job. So maybe you are engaged in teaching or engaged in some IT field. So you are performing some sort of an activity and the reference period is taken as a 1 year. So then you will be considered as employed according to the definition or classification of NSSO. So now let us look at the different criteria that have been used by NSSO to compute the unemployment rate. So the first measure is usual status. So what exactly do you mean by the usual status? When the activity status is determined on the basis of the reference period of last 365 days. So if you take the reference period of last 365 days, and if you are working more than 182 days, if you are available for work, first condition is you have to be available for work. You have to be available for work of greater than 182 days, and if you are working for that much time, then you are considered as an employed as per the usual status classification. And if you are not available for work greater than 182 days, if you are available for work for only 180 days, then you are classified as unemployed according to this usual status criteria or indicator. Now let us look at the other criteria, which is principal activity and the subsidiary activity. So within the usual status, there are two classification. One is principal status, the other one is the subsidiary status. So in the principal, with the indicator, the classification that we have recently talked about, that if you are available for work greater than the majority of the period of the time, that is greater than 182 days, and you are willing to work, then you are classified as employed according to the principal activity status, which says that activity status on which a person spent relatively long time, that is during 365 days preceding the survey. Now if you are available for just 180 days, then you are unemployed. as per the principal activity status. Now let us look at the subsidiary economic activity status. It says that during the reference period of 1 year, that is the last 365 days, if you are working for greater than 30 days also, even for greater than 30 days, then you are considered as employed as per the subsidiary economic activity status. So the people who were available for work and were working for close to 180 days were considered as unemployed according to the principal activity status. But here, according to the subsidiary activity status, they will be considered as employed. So that is the important classification. That is, in the usual status we have two criteria. One is the principal status and other one is the subsidiary status. So these are the this is one indicator, and apart from that, if you take the indicator of weekly status, that is, if your last reference period is 1 week, NSSO measures has different criteria, sets of criteria to measure the unemployment rate, and if it is taking the reference period as 1 week, and if you are able to work even for 1 hour on any particular day during the last 1 week, then you are considered as employed. For example, on Tuesday you have worked for half an hour, and on for Wednesday you have worked for half an hour, then you are considered as unemployed. You have to work 1 hour completely in a single setting. So that is the measure or the criteria that has been used by the NSSO. So that is currently weekly status. And the last one more status is current daily status. This is the most comprehensive measure of unemployment, because rather than just terming or just mentioning some individual as employed or unemployed, this CDS measure gives us the degree or the intensity of the unemployment that exists within that rural place or any area. For example, here the current daily status, the reference period is 1 week. And here do not be confused with the term daily status, because it is computed on a daily basis. For example, in a particular day, if you are working for more than 4 hours, then you are considered fully employed. And if you are working for less than 4 hours, then that is half employed. And if you are working for 0 hours, then you are not at all employed. For example, now in a week, if you are working for more than 4 days, just a moment. So the current daily status, which talks about the reference period of 1 week and usually measures on a daily basis. So if you are measuring for greater than 4 hours, then you are employed. Less than 4 hours, half employment. This is half employment. Suppose there are 6 days in a week, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and on one particular day you have worked 6 hours, 5, 3, 2. So here you are fully employed, fully employed, and here also this is 5, fully employed, half employed. So 1, 2, 3, 4, total you have worked 5 days. So this is the measure that implies that this is a comprehensive measure, because it also gives us an indicator that whether you have worked for the half day or the full day. So these are the different indicators. Now let us look at the values of these particular values, and the labor force periodic survey in the recent data, that is the recent data that has been published by NSSO in the month of September, where LFPR stands at 40.22%. So you can see that pre-pandemic time, where in the year of 2018-19 it was roughly around 52%, has now come down to 40.22%. So that signifies the unemployment rate that has been persisting in the economy since the onset of the pandemic. Now if you look at the unemployment rate according to these indicators, that is usual principal status, usual principal subsidiary status, current weekly status, current daily status, and you look at the different data, how the value of unemployment has been rising here, and here it has fallen in the year 2000. So these are kind of old indicators. The recent data was not yet available. We have to look at the wait for the NSSO results to be published. So just to give you an idea that the though the growth rate was very less, the unemployment was under control here. And here during the 1993 to 2000, the growth rate was pretty high. Growth rate was pretty high. That is, but still the unemployment rate was less over here. And similarly here you can see that the current daily status unemployment rate is pretty high, and here current weekly status it is also high, and usual principal subsidy status it is lower. And you can also think or think along these lines that usual principal status unemployment rate, which is 2.81 here, usual principal subsidy status, which measures the same person as unemployed, if measures the person as employed if he is working even greater than 30 days, will this value will be lesser than this. So that is 2.23. If you cumulate all these all the four values, you can see that the unemployment rate has risen from this particular value to this particular year. So that is the phenomenon of jobless growth, which we'll talk in the upcoming slides. So now, having understood that there is a vicious cycle of unemployment, one has to understand. So if there is a rise in unemployment, just take the pandemic time, if there is a rise in unemployment, that is most people have left their jobs, or due to some reason, or either they are terminated or they themselves have quit the job. There might be n number of reasons. So basically unemployment is a macroeconomic indicator, and the unemployment rates have risen in the past 2 years. And if the unemployment rate rises, your income falls, and as a result of your fall in your income, households also cut down on their expenditure. If this phenomena, if one household cuts down their expenditure, similarly all the households who have lost their employment status or lost their job will be cutting down their expenditure. And if you look at the country level, the entire demand from the public will come down. If there is a less demand in the companies from the public, then there is a fall in profits for the companies. Then they will tend to fire off the workers who are also working. Then the rise in unemployment cycle continues. So this is a vicious cycle. We have to break this vicious cycle. We have to break this. How do we break this? There has to be a government intervention, and there are many other ways where the jobs have to be generated through MSME sector holds the vital, it is the vital cog in addressing the unemployment issue. So we'll talk about the different issues. Now let us move on to the next major phenomena, which is jobless growth. So what exactly is jobless growth? Now let us try to understand the jobless growth. The phenomenon is, just look at these terms, jobless growth. So there has been a growth in the economy, but at the same time the growth is not accompanied by the growth in employment or jobs. For example, I would like to give you a scenario where if the companies are growing, then what do? They want to produce more. So for more production, they will need more employees. So the growth of a company is assisted by the rise in jobs that have been provided by the company to the public. So here it is, they go hand in hand. But we are witnessing a phenomenon where the rise in growth is not accompanied by the rise in the jobs. So what is the reason? Let us try to look at the same phenomena through data. So if you look at 1972 to 77, here is the GDP growth. GDP growth is 4.6%, and the employment generation is just 2.6. And similarly here is 1982, growth rate is 3.9, 2.1. Here again roughly the same, 4% less than close to 1.7. And here comes the real phenomena where the growth has risen from 4 to 5.6, and there has been slight rise in the employment generation. Now is the real phenomena where post liberalization, that is 1991 period, we are witnessing a jobless growth. That is, the growth is taking place in the entire economy, but it has not been accompanied by the growth in the jobs. So just 1% rise in the jobs. And similarly here, and here literally there are no jobs. Similarly here, so this data clearly establishes the fact that India has been going through a phenomenon of jobless growth. So hence it is termed as unemployment is the next, it has been the silent pandemic. silent pandemic. So what are the reasons behind this? We'll try to explore in the next slides. So before going ahead, let us look at the key trends in the job creation. If you look at the last decade, that is 2001 to 11, the recent data is yet to be published. The growth rate of the labor force was significantly higher than the growth rate of employment. So what does it mean? The people who want to go out and participate in the economic activities was larger. At the same time, the employment rate was less than that. And if you look at the same data, that is the growth rate of economy was 7.7%, which was pretty high, but the employment generation was just 1.8%. So that is the average growth rate over the entire decade. And the 66th round of National Sample Survey data on employment in 2011 revealed that between 2004-5 to 2009-10, only 1 million jobs were added per year, in a period when the economy was growing at a record 8.43% growth across the country. So again, it is established, the same fact is being re-established through the data that we are witnessing here. And an Indian Labour Bureau survey of 2015 showed that 2000 companies in 8 sampled industries generated all of 1 lakh jobs, which was a fall from 4 lakh jobs generated in the year 2014, even though the growth was higher in that particular year. So that is, the 2014 had generated 4 lakh jobs. In the year 2015, there was just 1 lakh jobs that were generated, even though the growth was higher in the year 2015. Now let us look at the last point. HDFC report on India's tapering jobs growth says that the employment elasticity, here is a term that might be asked in the examination, which is employment elasticity. So what do you mean by this employment elasticity? It means that if the country grows by 10% and the jobs are created by just 2%, then it shows that employment elasticity is less. So it is calculated by employment generation divided by the GDP growth. In this case, it is 2 by 10, that is 1 by 5, 20.2%. So this is the employment elasticity, which is less than which was less than. So if you look at this data, employment elasticity in the economy is now close to 0. For every 1 point rise in GDP, that is every 1% rise in GDP, there is less than, jobs only grow by 0.15%. So though the GDP is growing by 10%, the employment generation is less than that, that is 2%. So that shows that if the growth is not assisted by the jobs creation, then the employment elasticity will be less than 1. So that is the key idea behind that. Now let us look at the reasons behind the jobless growth. So what are the reasons? In India, growth is attributed mainly to service sector. See, if you look at the economic analysis that takes place, economy comprises of 3 sectors. One is the primary sector, secondary sector, primary sector, secondary sector or the manufacturing sector, and the services or the tertiary sector. If you look at the phenomenon, agriculture, which has the major chunk of employment generation, that is more than 50% of the population is still occupied in agriculture, either directly or indirectly. Then there comes the manufacturing, then there comes the services sector. So what have we witnessed is that the employment generation that has been GDP contribution is majorly done by the services sector, and the employment it contributes is just around 30%. And because it is majorly driven by IT and financial services sector, which are highly skilled jobs, hence the people do not possess adequate skills to go and get a job in the services industry. Just to quote a data, the recently released report of World Bank says that the skill rate of the India is just around 0.7% in contrast to 96% of South Korea. So it shows that that the people in India do not possess the adequate skill. Not just the people, there is one more report that has been released by NASSCOM which says that the 70% of the engineers, 70% of the engineers are unemployable because they do not possess the adequate skills. And it is not just the engineers, 85% of the graduates are also unemployable because they do not possess the adequate skills. So now let us look at the next point. So other reason is in the manufacturing sector that we are witnessing a growth, but it has been mostly capital intensive growth. So if you want to have a growth within the economy, then you should be creating jobs. So when will you be able to creating jobs? When the manufacturing industry focuses clearly on labor intensive industries. And what are labor intensive industries? The textile industry, the jute industry, the gems industry. So there are few labor intensive industries. If these are given the boost by the government, then we will be witnessing the growth of jobs. But what is happening is we are witnessing a growth that has been dominated by the knowledge intensive services sector along with the capital intensive manufacturing. So they have been the biggest growth engines of the Indian economy. And now let us look at the next point. So stagnation in manufacturing output and employment and contraction of labor intensive segment. So we are witnessing that the labor intensive segment is going down, and at the same time capital intensive segment is going up along with the services sector. Hence there is a rise in growth, but not in jobs. So this clearly illustrates the fact that why we are witnessing a jobless growth. And apart from that, what are the reasons for declining labor intensive industries? And here are the reasons mentioned, that there has been an excess rigidity in the formal manufacturing labor market, and rigid labor regulations have constrained the employer to go through a legal hassle. So what exactly I am trying to say here is, suppose you think you are an employer. Now you are employing some person that is an employee, and if you want to fire him, you cannot do it easily because there are few labor laws, and most of the times, even if you tend to fire the employee can go and file an appeal in the higher courts, and the process will tend to last longer. And the phenomena has been witnessed that most of the time the judgment goes in the favor of an employee. So the employers are hesitant or reluctant to hire more people because of this rigid labor laws which have been in favor of the employees. So now, apart from that, the Industrial Dispute Act has also lowered employment in organized manufacturing by about 25%. That gives us the data there. And this stringent employment protection legislation, the same point which I have elaborated now, is again emphasized here. Thus, the nature of trade regime in India is still biased towards the capital intensive industries. See, because there have been rigid labor laws, so the employers have opted for capital intensive industries. Now let us look at the few more reasons. That is, the nature of Indian manufacturing is not employment friendly. Again, the same point, they have gone for the capital intensive industry, and the labor intensity of MSME is 4 times higher than that of large firms, but they are deprived of access to credit, and they do not have the adequate technology to boost their growth. So this has limited their growth potential. So government has been coming up with various schemes in order to boost the MSME growth, because it is the important segment which will create the employment generation within India. And there are other impediments to entrepreneurial growth in the small firms, such as the high costs of formalization, the legal process of setting up an industry that is high, that is also known as red tapeism, and the process is quite complicated and tedious. So the governments are, that is why now focusing on a single window solution, that is single window solution. Through one stroke, the entire process of setting up a company will be resolved. So that is the idea over here. And the tax incentives, subsidies, depreciation of all the facilities or the incentives that have been given by the government, they are majorly focused on the amount invested, not on the number of jobs created. So there needs to be a slight change in the approach that has to be addressed over here. And apart from that, the sluggish process in education and the skill level of workers. So these are the different set of reasons that we are witnessing the jobless growth. Now let us look at what needs to be done that in order to be reverse the phenomenon of jobless growth. So the first point is the need of the hour is to make livelihood creation. See, whenever you are pursuing development, but at the cost of, by opting for capital intensive industries, you are not able to generate jobs. So if we are able to make livelihood creation along with the development strategy, then we will be able to witness the growth along with the growth in jobs. So that will be a win-win situation is the important takeaway from this. And it needs to be accepted that organized manufacture is no longer the answer to generate large scale employment as it was in the past, because we are witnessing a technological revolution which has changed the entire paradigm in which we are living. So and apart from that, the labor laws have to be reformed. That is because the employers feel that the things are unbiased towards them. So there is a high time that the labor laws reform should take place, and which has rightly been done in the last 1 year, that the 4 codes were passed with regard to addressing this labor laws. And other reasons you can see that if because of rigid labor laws, corporates are preferring capital intensive industries. Now addressing the labor law reforms will help us serve the purpose of creating jobs. And apart from that, we have to encourage the entrepreneurial instincts, that is through the schemes like Startup India, Stand Up India. Government has been quite vocal about creating a strong, vibrant entrepreneurial class within the country, and that has been the reason that we are witnessing quite a fabulous results over there under the Startup India and Startup India. So the education system also needs to be revamped to adequate or to impart the right skills to the graduates who are pursuing their graduation. So the academia and industry linkage has to be built, so that the skills that the graduates are possessing are in needs or are in accordance with the industry needs. So that will serve the purpose. And the last one is the job intensive sectors like the food processing and as we discussed the textile, jute, other have to be given a fillip or a boost. And Mudra scheme is a big game changer as it can create the jobs for the MSME sector. Through this, you understand, if you go through the Mudra scheme, you will be able to understand that it can be a game changer for MSME sector, and this sector has a potential to create the required jobs in India. So friends, that's all we have with regard to this unemployment chapter, and we have discussed in detail the different facets that are revolving around this unemployment, which has been a silent pandemic in the last few decades. So that's all. For more such interesting videos, before we leave ahead, you can answer this, take this as a homework question. So what is the meaning of the term jobless growth? Has India been experiencing such a growth process? How far Skill India program would address the jobless growth phenomenon in India? Now you try to address this question within 250 words. So that's all. For more such interesting videos, subscribe to our channel. Thank you.